Iran, Saudi Arabia and the UAE would be connected with each other in an economic way or a politically way. And now they've come together in this bloc. They had a lot of tensions following the fallout over the Tehran deal.
Correct.
Tehran nuclear deal, of course, which fell apart. And now they've come together in this bloc.
Absolutely. You know, as we all have been learning since the formation of the Brics bloc, and more importantly, these past 3 days, the purpose and the guiding principle for the Brics is to broker peace and development. And nothing speaks volume than those three countries being a part of the expanded family.
Ethiopia as well is another interesting addition to the bloc. Fastest growing economy in Africa,
yes,
am I
East
right?
Africa, Horn of Africa, yes.
And it's also recovering from that 2-year conflict
yes.
as well. So there's a lot of
and, you know, Ethiopia
economy.
plays a very, very critical strategic geopolitical positioning in the Horn of Africa, especially when it comes to countering terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the gateway to other African countries because it is home to the African Union. So for anybody who wants to really have, you know, an entrance into Africa, all they have to do is build a relationship, a close relationship with Ethiopia. And more importantly, it opens up a floodgates of economic opportunities for trading, both for Ethiopia and BRIC members and those that have expressed interest of joining Ethiopia.
It's only a few hours since it was announced that these 6 new members would be joining the bloc as of January 2024, and already we're hearing about other potential members. We had a guest in the studio earlier from Turkey, and he said that Turkey was very keen to join the bloc in the very near future.
I think, you know, the BRICS offers something that has not been available to many global South countries, more specifically equity and inclusivity. A lot of these countries, they've been allowed to come to summits, participate in summits, but their voices were suppressed.
Right.
And this is a bloc that says, no, your friendship as well as your country's interest is also our interest, and we will respect that. And there's no political bloc that offers that. But here goes BRICS, and that's why they all are here today.
Indeed.
And we've been listening to them, and they've all have expressed their appreciation for the existence of the BRICS.
Exactly, and a lot of optimism as well. And more than a few times we've heard the names Nelson Mandela dropped, and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he mentioned Mahatma Gandhi, almost in a sense that, you know, the work that these key figures started is something that working together with BRICS might continue.
Yes, absolutely. For the continent, you know, this is a very big deal because, as we know, the continent is a victim of neocolonialism, and we've seen that whether it's north, south, east, or west, or central Africa, and they're just ready to get away from being, you know, suppressed and their economies being held stagnant. And one of the biggest dreams that Mandela had for Africa is self-determination. And nothing speaks volume than each and every country on this continent, 55 to be exact, to be proud of their identity without being told what to do and how to do it and when to do it.
Indeed. And now here we are, 2023, and it's still the minority making the choices for the majority. And now Africa as a continent wants its chance to have its own say and to grow.
Yes, it's 1.2 billion people. You know, that's not a small number, economically and politically. And more importantly, you have powerhouses like South Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt, and then on the west you have Ghana and Nigeria and others who really move the continent. So the continent is not a child to be dictated to as to how to move, when to move, or what kind of relationships to build and why they should build and why they shouldn't build. And that is why the BRICS bloc was so attractive, and that's why everybody flocked to it. And we've seen 40 showed interest, 22 submitted formal application, 6 have been accepted into that, and the future is just really grand for the BRICS.
Well, even with these 6 new members, let's just consider how enormous this will be in terms of GDP and in terms of world population.
Absolutely. Now the GDP just increased. It's now 37% of the world's GDP.
And 42% of the world population.
Absolutely.
That's incredible, isn't it?
That is incredible.
And if it continues to grow,
yes, that's a lot of buying power.
Everyone's on the same page.
Yes, that is a lot of countries that stand to benefit and build their economies and sustain it. Because one of the biggest lack, especially for the global South, is all this promise of we will help you build your economy. We will help you build infrastructures and industries. And then nothing comes to fruition, so the economies are not sustained. They just dwindle even worse because they're borrowing expensive debts, and then there's no way to pay it back. So yes,
it's not working the way it is. So they need a change.
Absolutely.
And a lot of countries are hoping that this is the change that's going to be the best route for them.
No, this is the change, because now they have the option to be able to talk to their neighbor and see how they could utilize the Brics platform to trade with their local currencies and sustain their economy.
Well, it's been an absolute privilege staying with you over the past 3 days to bring you all that's been happening at the summit. We've been here in Johannesburg in this incredible studio. Sometimes it's been a little bit hot, but we haven't moaned at all because look at the view. It's absolutely spectacular. And the Brics Plus dialogue session has wrapped up now today with leaders and representatives speaking on cooperation, multipolarity, as the current members announce the bloc's expansion, of course, as we were just saying. During today's day,
the countries of the so-called Golden Billion are doing everything in order to preserve the previous unipolar world order. They are comfortable with it. In fact, it's the same colonialism in a new package.
The representation and voices of the developing countries in global governance should be increased. It's also important to uphold true multilateralism.
I intend to open a new cooperation agenda between Brazil and Africa. Let's go back to our universal vocation and rebuild our historical ties with the developing countries. Prosperity is only full when it is shared.
I believe that Brics can work together with others to help ensure progress in reforms, counter-terrorism, food and health security, energy security and building resilient supply chains.
In South Africa, we have a word that we use to describe friendship, cooperation, and we call that Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a practice based on the understanding that our success, our prosperity and well-being depends on the success, prosperity and well-being of others.
The Brics grouping finally announced its long-awaited expansion plans today. Speculation has surrounded the topic for months, with 23 states have applied to the bloc to become full members.
The South African President Cyril Ramaphosa publicly revealed that these 6 countries that will enjoy full membership starting from January next year.
As the 5 Brics countries, we have reached agreement on the guiding principles, standards, criteria and procedures of the Brics expansion process. We have decided to invite the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates to become full members of Brics. The membership will take effect from the 1st of January 2024.
Well, as the day 3 of Brics is wrapping up, let's now cross to our correspondent, Nolavuyo Kange, for more details. Nolavuyo, good to see you. So some very big developments for the Brics group. Take us through some of the main points covered, please.
Well, absolutely, Nikki. Very big developments, I must say. The Brics group of nations recently made those announcements, basically giving us the detail behind the decisions that have been taken from the 15th summit this week. And top of those decisions is, of course, the expansion of the group. And that decision does not come without any questions. And one of those questions in particular is on the acronym Brics, which stands for the first letters of the initial, or rather the old Brics countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. A lot of people saying that it is only fair to assume that the name will change or something will be done to the name. But then we had a few leaders clarifying those rumors and those speculations, saying that mutually, as the group of leaders, they have decided to keep the name and it will not be altered. And that goes to show the demonstration, it goes to show and demonstrate the continuity of the policies and of the mission of the group, the Brics group. But the monumental change has also been lauded by a lot of Brics nation leaders, with all of them saying that, of course, it is important for the world to see that with the addition of these Brics members, times have changed and the institution must undergo transformation. And some other leaders have really been congratulating and wishing these new members the best. And those new members, of course, are Egypt, are Iran, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Ethiopia. And I must say, a lot has come out of that one decision, of course, on the expansion. Let's quickly have a look and hear what President Putin had to say about that.
President Lula da Silva noted some points that are most important for all of us, among which I would single out the issues of the settlement of the single currency. This is a difficult issue, but we will move forward in solving these problems. The second one concerns the organisation of the payment between our countries in the economic field. I would like to congratulate our new members who will all be working together next year. I want to assure all colleagues that we will continue to expand the influence of Brics in the world.
Another important note that we need to take note of is the fact that the leaders did say that the group is open to more countries joining going forward and in the future. This is, of course, as after 23 countries officially applied to join the group, and an equal a number of those 23 was also said to have shown interest, but unofficially, and I guess they did not reach out to the members of the group or the principals of the Brics nation. Analysts are, of course, highlighting the fact that 4 of these new countries are big, powerful OPEC plus members. That just goes to show how powerful the Brics nation is and how attractive it is to a lot of people within the world. And I think it's also worth noting that 7, or rather almost half of OPEC members had initially showed interest, and this really shows how powerful and how much of a powerhouse Brics is. And we also heard Indian Prime Minister Modi with his remarks on exactly those kind of changes and the kind of diversity that we are yet about to see. Let's quickly have a listen to that.
I'm confident that together with these countries we will infuse new momentum and new energy into our cooperation. India has had deep historic relations with all of these countries. With the help of Brics, new dimensions will also be added to our bilateral cooperation. For the other countries that have expressed a desire to join Brics, India will contribute towards building a consensus for them to be a part of Brics as partner countries. The expansion and modernization of Brics is a message that all institutions should mold themselves according to the changing times.
Positive outcomes coming out of this summit, particularly from today's announcement and on those decisions, with leaders also adding that this addition to the group will only make the group stronger, and many countries around the globe will also have confidence in wanting to join the group and also looking forward to a multipolar world, especially as the group has also made remarks on the tackling of reforming global financial system. And I think that also goes back to the words that President Ramaphosa shared a few days ago about how the new development bank has really played a crucial and important role as an alternative to global financial institutions, which I would assume are those IMF or the World Bank. But really important out of these decisions was also the collaboration and partnerships within the African continent, as the theme of this week, or rather this year's summit, is Brics and Africa. On those, they really really touched on the independence of the African continent without being controlled by Western countries. And I guess that question becomes very important when you take a closer look at just how the African continent relies on the rest of the world for about 80% of trade and commerce. And a lot of leaders are singing the same tune, saying that the only way out of being controlled by Western countries and Western policies is for the African continent to be stable and developed in terms of its economics. And also, they also say that the ability for the African continent to become a strong, powerful and independent geopolitical force is for it to work on its own internal cohesion and economic stability. The group has also reached an agreement on guiding principles, standards and a few criteria and procedures for the bloc, also saying that this particular expansion and these important steps and bold decisions that have been taken will really push and let these other world leaders and world forces see the power within the BRICS group. And that also speaks to how recent speculation and opinions led to people saying that the BRICS group was established to be a rival towards the G7 nations, and all of these BRICS nation leaders have made that clear, saying that that is not true. BRICS nations are walking their own path and doing what really is best for their countries. But the objective, of course, in as much as these countries that have joined are different countries, different cultures, different policies and different missions, of course. But President Lula da Silva of Brazil really made it clear that it is different, everything is changing, but the goal and the mission is the same. Let's have a listen to the president.
Many said that we were all too different. The experience nevertheless demonstrates the contrary. Our diversity strengthened the fight for a new international order that accommodates pluralism in terms of geography, economics and politics in the 21st century. This is a world of transition. BRICS offers us a source of creative solutions for the challenges that we face. The relevance of BRICS is confirmed by the growing interest of other countries to join our group. Now, the GDP of BRICS is going up to 37% of the global GDP in terms of purchasing power and 48% in terms of world population.
Really a historical time and moment for South Africa, for the world, for the initial, or rather the older BRICS nations, as all of this takes part, as South Africa also celebrates 13 years within the bloc. What we're also getting from this week and from this summit and everything else that has taken place is how the BRICS nations are fast cementing their own place in the geopolitical and geo-economic feature, or rather space within the world. Really great perspectives and decisions that took place just behind me and in the other rooms in this Sandton Convention Center. Back to you, Nikki and Lulu.
In the strongest voice. Nalavuyo, thank you so much for bringing us those highlights. We really appreciate you being in the summit for us and bringing us all those key points. For now, Nalavuyo Kange, RT correspondent, thank you. Now, the Chinese President Xi Jinping, he outlined the importance of cooperation and expansion within the BRICS framework. Let's remind ourselves of what he had to say.
We reached broad consensus, adopted a declaration and achieved fruitful outcomes. Leaders of the 5 countries unanimously agreed to invite Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Argentina, Iran and Ethiopia to the BRICS family as official members. This membership expansion is historic. It shows the determination of BRICS countries for unity and cooperation with more developing countries.
Talking about the expansion of BRICS, we know that I think all of the 6 countries, they share the common goal, promoting common development. And for example, if you look at the newly added country, Iran, we see that since the issue of nuclear, there has been some hostility between the United States and Iran. And if you look at the current foreign policy of Abdul Dubai, it's also within the context that it maintained a non-alignment position and directly irritated by the fact that the U.S. tend to dictate or scrutinize its relationship with China or Russia. So we believe the reason why China advocate for the expansion of BRICS is that it's based on the wish of promoting advancing progressive changes in the global governance system and promoting common prosperity, promoting peace and stability. BRICS will definitely play a very important role in maintaining true multilateralism. Take, for example, the new Development Bank as an example, which is one of the international institution within the BRICS structure. The NDB differs from World Bank as its founding members have all equal voting rights and no country has a veto. And this ensures equality and mutual respect among the countries in BRICS.
In a press conference during the BRICS summit, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov clearly defined the difference between the BRICS bloc and its global and Western counterparts.
The specific weight of each country can be measured by its membership in the UN, how much pull each country has there, how many employees its quota permits to work in the Secretariat. This is the difference between BRICS and the G7 and other Western-centric structures, because in the G7 everyone listens to the US, there where decisions are made in line with the strategic line that Washington sets. BRICS has a completely different approach to its work, and today and yesterday at the closed meeting we talked a lot about that. And not coincidentally, I talked about the explosive interest in partnering with and joining BRICS. We do things differently here. We have fairness. Equality is ensured for every participant. And if someone is unhappy with this or that decision, there will be no consensus. If someone is uncomfortable, then everyone else tries their best to find wording and solutions that will help ensure unity. We strive to reach a consensus rather than following the commands of a single superior. It takes more time, of course, but consensus agreements are much more stable, long-term and more effective. Western media has dubbed BRICS an economic club, and to a certain extent economics are crucial, given that the current 5 members are already ahead of the G7 in terms of purchasing power parity, and with the addition of 6 new members the gap will widen even further.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us here on RT International, and as we bring you this live coverage from Johannesburg. It's been an absolute privilege. Today is day 3 and the final day of the 15th BRICS Summit. As things are wrapping up, we're not going anywhere just yet. For now, it's bye-bye and see you soon.
See you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki and Nunu. Well, just to reiterate, the big news line emerging from